Okay, we are ready to start. I could ask all of council to take their seats and call this meeting to order. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Council Chambers here at Vancouver City Hall for today's council meeting, September the 15th, 2015. Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call, please?
All right. Mayor Robertson is in the chair. Councillor Louis is away on sick leave. Councillor Stevenson. Here. Councillor Deal. Here. Councillor Jang. Here. Councillor Reimer. Here. Councillor Meigs. Here. Councillor Ball. Here. Councillor Carr. Here. Councillor Affleck. And Councillor Di Genova. Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And again, welcome everyone. We will dive right into today's agenda. And the first item is on in camera. Council is required to meet in camera later this week. The reasons and authority under the Vancouver Charter are listed in the updated agenda. Would someone like to move that motion? Councillor Stevenson will move. Councillor Deal will second. All in favor? Any opposed? Carries unanimously. And minutes from our previous meetings are next up. Minutes, firstly, from our regular council meeting, July the 21st. Any corrections from council? Councillor Deal will move adoption. A seconder for that. Councillor Ball, and all those in favor of adoption. Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. And we're on to the second set of minutes that are followed it's from the regular council meeting that followed the Standing Committee on Planning, Transportation and the Environment Committee. That was July the 22nd, 2015. Any corrections to those minutes? No corrections. Councillor Deal moves adoption. A seconder. Councillor Carr. All those in favor of that motion? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. And we have concluded on the minutes side of things, so we need a motion to go into committee of the whole. Consider our next agenda items. Councillor Stevenson, second by Councillor Jang. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. So council will now consider the consent agenda items, and we have 2 administrative reports and 1 policy report on the agenda for consideration. Council has received a request to speak to administrative report number 1. That is the 2016 interest rate on property tax arrears. So should council wish to hear from that speaker, and the report and the related bylaw number 9 can be referred to tomorrow's committee meeting on city finance and services. That's September the 16th, starting tomorrow morning. So Councillor Carr will move referral. Any debate on that? And all those in favor, referring administrative report number 1. Any opposed? And that carries. So we'll look at adoption of the recommendations for the remaining items, those 2. Does any member wish to hold either of those other items for debate, separate vote, or because of conflict of interest? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to adopt the recommendations in those 2 reports. Councillor Stevenson, any debate? No debate on the recommendations from those 2 reports. So all those in favor of adoption on the consent agenda? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries unanimously. And that means that we have adopted the following reports on consent. Administrative report number 2 is 5 West Hastings Street Heritage Facade Grant. And the policy report number 1 is amendments to the zoning and development bylaw to remove barriers to building to the certified passive house standard in the RS1 district. So those have been approved. Thanks to staff for all the work on those reports. And we'll look forward to next steps. And that means we're on to our report reference. And we have a report back today on the FIFA Women's World Cup Tournament 2015, which we look forward to hearing more on. I know lots of us got to enjoy it. The whole city got to enjoy being in the global limelight and an unprecedented success. Before I go on about it, we should hear from Michelle Collins, who was leading the charge on our staff team to make this happen. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Mayor Robertson, councillors. Yes, my name is Michelle Collins, Manager of Sport Hosting, and I was very, very excited to work on this project starting here with the City of Vancouver. Fact is, I think the province claimed it right away for us, and it was the Women's World Cup winner was Vancouver. Yes, the U.S. hosted the trophy, but as quoted from the article in the province, it's Vancouver's tourism industry, residents, and soccer-hungry visitors who have been the true winners. It was probably the best scenario that we could have, it was one of the best scenarios we could have asked for, despite Canada not being in the final, would have been the other one. But the outcome of the U.S. versus Japan did very well for the economy and the celebration atmosphere that was brought to Vancouver. It's expected that the Women's World Cup had an even larger economic impact than the $52 million originally estimated. The BC government is supporting the statistic, and FIFA has claimed it's one of the most popular women's tournaments in FIFA history. 4 games at BC Place sold out at over 50,000 people. There was only 7 in total for the whole tournament, and 4 of those games were here in Vancouver, so it's something very proud for the community to be a part of in that history. And right now, Tourism Vancouver is indicating that the numbers for 2015 is the best summer on record for Tourism Vancouver. And so I think the stats prove that the opportunity of hosting something on a world stage like this, Vancouver has stepped up to the table, and we have met all expectation when it comes to the economic impact and the benefits. However, to go beyond that, one of our greatest things celebrated was the hosting of the Vancouver Fan Zone. It was the only fan zone of its kind, and in Canada, we had visitors who were in Winnipeg for the U.S. event, for the games that started off there, who traveled to Vancouver after as they followed their team. And they just said, Vancouver, you did it right. There was nothing like this that was happening in Winnipeg. No other cities had a celebration that was accessible, free, and as inviting, to come into this space. You can see that we were jam-packed. Yes, the feature was the television screens there, but excited to say that we did not have a single incident, yet having an all-ages licensed area. We had longer lineups for the soccer activations and activities than we did for the beer garden. So I'm pretty excited to see how Vancouver celebrated responsibly. And beyond that, just the legacy of who came and the people it inspired. It really was a true community environment. And I think I'm going to show a video now just because the community and the visitors said it best.
Here you just see this incredible demographic of people. You see not only women, but you see also boys who play on junior teams too, wearing their soccer shorts from their team. Girls wearing their soccer shirts from the team. Girls making these posters for their heroes. You have whole families coming up, and it's literally planting a seed. Here you just see this incredible demographic of people. You see not only women, but you see also boys who play on junior teams too, wearing their soccer shorts from their team. Girls wearing their soccer shirts from the team. Girls making these posters for their heroes. You have whole families coming up, and it's literally planting a seed for the future of women's soccer here, and it's so inspiring.
Go Canada, go!
It's like cool to see people from all over the world coming here to watch one beautiful game.
I think the fact that everybody is coming out here and there's so much press, I think that is a huge thing. That gets everybody really excited about women's soccer and women's sport.
It's a great venue for sports. I think it's encouraging for all the citizens to see what the athletes are doing and inspire little kids to continue doing the same thing.
I think it's great. We met this man who was trying to get young women in sports, and he was telling us about how so many young girls have been dropping out for confidence issues, and I think it's good to raise awareness and try to get young girls to pursue their dreams, seeing how all these women are very successful in what they do and what they love.
It's honestly like the once-in-a-lifetime experience, and we've dreamed of doing this and becoming one of them, so it's really awesome to see that.
I think this has just been an excellent display of women's sport, and it's about time that women got the recognition.
Look at all the girls that are here. Can't believe it. And they're so enthusiastic.
The women play such an honest, hard game of soccer that's so respectable. Like, I'm so thrilled. I've never been more thrilled of any Canadian team, ever.
Looking back at how much I've grown and thinking like, oh, I might be one of them one of these days, it's just a great thing.
can't wait to try and play as best as I can so I can be like them one day.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
A soccer player. Pro soccer.
Well, what do you want to do when you grow up?
Be a soccer player.
So Mark Specht from Community Services. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the numbers for the fan zone. We originally had planned to activate for only 12 days, but it was very popular, and we did add another day, make a total of 13, at really no significant impact to the budget. Overall, over 132,000 visitors, obviously an average about 10,000 a day, but we did peak out at about 25,000 over the course of one day, which was, I believe the U.S. game. One of the significant benefits of it was the 33 Canadian soccer alumni that were there that came to the fan zone to share with the fans. Some traveled from across the province, or some from across the country to be together. So that was really exciting for them and exciting for fans to meet them as well. There was 18 performing groups and 163 performers. We had 2 rovers on site every day. I think you saw them in the video there. And one of the benefits that we tried to extend to the people that were attending the games at BC Place was the bike valet. Over 1,700 bikes came into the bike valet. It was free, and we did encourage people to do that if they were going to the game, making sure that we were staying open long enough afterwards for them to retrieve their bikes. We had, at the core of any event like this is usually the volunteers, and in this case there was significant participation, 230 volunteers, over 3,200 hours over the 13 days. And as part of our recycling campaign, we engaged with the Binners Project, and there were 6 binners from the Binners Project on site every day sorting the recyclables, and the total economic impact for them was over $1,800. We also did a survey on site, which was trying to find out who people were. We did it for the final 6 days that we were activated, so it was a fairly large sampling. 55% of the people that filled out the survey are from outside of the Lower Mainland, which means that's Metro and Fraser Valley, which means they either stayed with friends or family or in accommodation, other accommodation. 95% were likely to recommend Vancouver as a travel destination to their friends and family. And of those that filled out the survey, 43% were first-time visitors to Vancouver. And they rated the overall enjoyment of the fan zone, 84% of them, as good or excellent. We had significant media on site every day. It was really great. There's lots of support by local media, lots of social media support, lots of television and radio, but we also had some international attention as well, and it was kind of hard to keep up with them all because they were on site all the time, every day that we were active. I'm going to let Michelle talk a little bit more about engagement.
Yes, the fan zone was one of the most, it was an extension of the celebration of what was happening inside of the stadium. It was a true family environment where the lineups, were amazing to see, that little boys and little girls playing together on the pitch. They were lining up over and over so they could beat that robo goalie. But it was just a very inclusive environment to have everybody at one point celebrating. And I think the highlight of it all was that the fan zone unified the city. Whether you were from New Zealand now living in Vancouver, and whether you knew someone that was on your New Zealand national team or not, you went to the fan zone because you wanted to find other like-minded or other people from New Zealand that live in Vancouver so that you could connect to the community. And so we saw people come out by the droves to celebrate games that we didn't even expect to have high attendance. But when Sweden was playing, and to see the uniforms and the locals come in, it was super engaging to see how the community came together. Not on location, but Vancouver also had a Pride House down in the Davie area, and there was over 1,000 people who attended that over 9 days. And it really was a community locally, but even more so, and had a huge presence online. At the same time, it was the time when the American laws had passed for One Love, and they were celebrating, and just the community that connected and engaged online was a huge asset. And we're looking at best practices as we move forward for further engagement of Pride houses with all international events that we host. Marg made a quick mention here to the Soccer Women's Alumni, and I just wanted to feature it because there wasn't necessarily, the City of Vancouver opened the door as a platform to invite the alumni to come back. We wanted to make sure that we celebrated the foundation of how women's sports started or how women's soccer started. And so 1995 was the original Canadian women's national team going to the first ever FIFA Women's World Cup as an official organization. And we had 20 members of that team come back to celebrate their 20th anniversary. And no other city in Canada did this, to the point where we had people flying in from Ontario, from Texas, recognizable household names from the day, where Charmaine Hooper was there, Helen Stoombos, and they just really came back to celebrate. And a lot of them, I had one husband that came up to me and just said, thank you for reminding my wife like what she was a part of. Like, she's distanced herself from it. And this has really reactivated her and wanted her to get back involved with the game and to celebrate it, to the point where we now have a team that is returning already for the America's Masters Games, and they're going to relive their excitement on the games on the field there. An additional benefit and legacy of it was we did have a hospitality space that some sponsors had bought out to attend. However, not every day was activated, in which we then opened it up to the public to be able to access for a $10 donation to be able to come in and sit more in the lounge furniture and enjoy the game from there. And our visitors were more than welcome to attend. We raised just under $6,000 for kids sport, in which we wanted to make sure that this goes back into the community and making sure that all barriers. And so Pete Quivlon is here from Kidsport BC, and I just wanted to present the check for that opportunity and let him have a few words to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Robertson, councillors, for your support of this amazing event and for this legacy. This will help at least 30 to 40 young women get off the sidelines and into the game next year. You may see some of these young women in future World Cups. A little tidbit for you, Desiree Scott, the destroyer on the Canadian women's team. You may have some fond memories of her. She was a Kidsport kid when she was little. She couldn't afford the registration fees. Kidsport Winnipeg helped her out, and she's done some pretty amazing things. So hopefully out of these 30 or 40 kids, there'll be another future Olympian Women's World Cup player. Thank you for your support.
In addition to our women's alumni national team being a part of the games, they wanted to give back immediately. And so while they were here visiting, they actually went and held camps and clinics at the Strathcona Community Centre with one of our new programs there for the Strathcona Dragons that started a U11 and U13 girls soccer program. And there's no better impact of the Women's World Cup on the community. And so I'd like to introduce Coach Garcia from the Strathcona Community Centre to say a few words on what this meant to his community.
So my name is Marvin Garcia. I'm the soccer coordinator at Strathcona Community Centre. First of all, on behalf of our program and myself, thank you, Michelle, and your legacy program for all you've done for our soccer program. Not only has the legacy program inspired 30 girls to continue playing soccer, but it's also encouraged more girls to join our program. Last year, for the Women's World Cup, 30 girls got to meet their idols, and they got to see the game up close and meet the Canadian women's soccer team. At Strathcona, there's a lot of families that are very low income and can't afford club soccer. And because of Michelle's help and her legacy program, we decided we have made a program for the girls soccer team, where there are now 4 teams playing that entered the Whitecaps tournament. And even though it was our first year, we got many compliments from parents and coaches. They watched most of our games, and they said that we are the only community center that have entered a tournament like this. And they were impressed and how well organized and good we were. When I started the program, I had 10 kids. Now we have around 100 kids, and we also have 2 other schools that don't have a soccer program, and they're joining us this year. So we're expecting around 150 kids with a mix of boys and girls. Currently, right now, we have a wait list in both of our programs for the boys and girls, and hopefully it'll just continue expanding. The Legacy program has changed the lives of many kids. I've had one kid that cried to me and told me that it's the best thing that's ever happened to them. And they thanked me and said, thank you so much, right before they went to the middle of the soccer field, holding hands with one of their favorite women's soccer player. This is the same reaction I would have had if I met Messi, so I know where the child was coming from. Once again, thank you so much, Michelle, for your Legacy program. And like the kids in my program would say, your Legacy program is awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach Mercia. On behalf of all the alumni that attended the games, we would like to send the community ball in which all the alumni that came to the fan zone signed the ball, and we'd like to share that with your program at Strathcona.
All right.
We couldn't have done this without the support of City Council here, so I really appreciate to remind that our commitments were at $1.2 million for the hosting of the fan zone. We did receive some marketing funds for the exposure at the fan zone at $55,000 from FIFA. Hospitality revenue was higher than expected, and then also the contribution to the legacy projects that were executed. Production, city expenses, we had marketing communications, insurance, working with Sport BC is a great partnership to execute the fan zone, and also the legacy projects. We did come in under 5% of the budget, in which we unexpended at just under $60,000, so that will still remain in the reserve. So as you can see, it was a great success, strong performance by our city staff. I can't tell you how many people came forward to say how great our bylaws team, our team just got how to deliver these games. And I really believe it's because of the experience and what we learned from the 2010 games. Never once were we hassled by FIFA's marketing team or any of their people overseeing any of us, and they said they had to spend all their time focused on other communities and other cities that were hosting because they just didn't understand what to do. And so the staff of the City of Vancouver and the Park Board delivered an exceptional games, from Park Board facilities being used for the women's practices and development and just Empire Fields. It was just a great celebration. Amazing feedback, a strong legacy to our community and just where we're going forward now with the women's alumni and having them stay engaged in the community. Karina LeBlanc has recently retired, just finished playing her last professional game in Chicago, and she's returning to Vancouver to be a citizen here, and will be a resident of Gastown coming up, and we'll be sure to engage her in some of our legacy programs and seeing that the continuation of soccer develop further in our community. And of course, an appreciation to all the volunteers and elected officials who participated in our events. We couldn't have done it without you, and the Women's World Cup was a key success, and we look forward to hosting major future events here in the City of Vancouver. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right. Thank you very much, Michelle. And I'll just start with a huge thank you to you, to Dr. Ballum, who's been a tireless champion for all these efforts and organizing, and to all the partners we had. I think the strength was, again, as usual, was in the partnerships that we had and the legacies created from that go forward with Kids Sport, with Strathcona. Thanks, you guys, for being here, and into the community. I just want to reflect how much positive feedback I heard during those weeks, and even after. There was a buzz that carried on for quite a while. People that were visiting and were blown away by the city, by how well organized everything was, by how much importance we placed on the women, the best women in the world, athletes that were competing here in Vancouver, and making sure they got treated like the best athletes in the world and were well supported. So there were all kinds of great kudos from people visiting and from residents of the city appreciative of all the efforts to do this, and I think we exceeded all expectations by all accounts. So it was an extraordinary success. I think the most common question was, so how do we top this? What are we going to do next?
World Cup, here we come.
Yeah, again, a big thank you to all of you. I know we all had real confidence. It's why we stepped forward. The other Canadian cities, I think everyone did a good job. I think we did an extraordinary job, and we had the confidence going in to make sure we invested in it right, and everyone geared up. All the partners participated robustly, and that made it the success that it was. So thanks for your leadership, Michelle, and to everyone who made sure it was such a great success. I've got Councillor Reimer, who was all over this in her deputy mayor role and with her soccer genes. Did a great job as well on the front lines of it.
I went through withdrawal the first week after the World Cup because we had been at so many events together, and daily, hourly contact with Michelle and Mark Sprecht and the team down at the fan zone. I don't think I can say it better than the mayor did, other than to say that I would also echo all of that. And of course, Dr. Bellum, before there was Michelle and before we got Marg seconded to the fan zone, there was a vision around really pushing Vancouver as the lead city. And, as the federal leader of the NDP showed, we're not always the city that people think of as the sport hosting city, but Dr. Bellum had that vision, and supported by Mayor and all of Council, we were able to really push this forward. So it had all of the joy of the Olympics, but with summer weather and very much less heartburn of the Olympics, even though it was twice as long. So I did have 3 questions, though. The first was around how, we have the Rugby Sevens coming up in not very many months now, 6 months. We had the Masters Games in August. How do we feed in what we've learned? Because I really saw the improvement from the Olympics to this. The Olympics was fantastic. This was like a whole other stratosphere. So how does this inform Rugby Sevens, Masters, and potentially other bids that we might make in the future?
Definitely. Well, we'll transfer our best practices from the Women's World Cup and learnings from it and how we can engage the community. We've spoken with Rugby Canada already. Do not start from scratch. Here are some of the projects that we could deliver in reflection to where we hosted the girls' soccer festival in the lean-up. We could do similar with the rugby, the engagement of the local Musqueam and First Nations communities here. How do we activate some of the alumni and some of the current players who represent those communities to inspire our youth? And so we'll definitely be transferring some of our best practices and working with Rugby Canada on that. In reflection to the America's Masters Games, it's that engagement with our volunteers and creating the opportunities and the communication that will continue, and working with each of our PSOs to define and show how Vancouver can host and the resources that we can assist to make it kind of the best experience possible. But we do have a greater partnership, and that's with the Vancouver Hotel Destination Association and Tourism Vancouver, and a strategy where they're really standing behind us and looking at the opportunities. And so Vancouver is being very proactive to look at the different events that are out there and make sure that they pass a quality test and that they can meet all these legacy objectives and what we've been able to deliver with the Women's World Cup, so that we continue to associate ourselves and strive for that excellence. So we will continue with the strategy and be able to report back to Council with that strategy shortly.
Well, I'm excited. I'm not I have not yet been a rugby fan. I will be come next year, but I am very excited to see if we can take on Hong Kong in terms of the public realm, and what they do with rugby is something to behold. So I'm excited about that.
Get your costume ready if you're coming out.
Does FIFA have a way to feed in what we've learned? Will this improve the experience at the next Women's World Cup?
We hope to be able to transfer the knowledge. We did have some visiting people come from Paris, come from France, that are going to be hosting the next Women's World Cup, and so we hope to transfer the knowledge over and to continue the fan zones. Germany was the first time that they ever hosted a fan zone, and so it was still kind of more of a voluntary opt-in to the communities, and we do hope that they kind of make it mandatory, because there was a demand. People drove up, they came down, and then they came into it, and if the men's game is celebrating that way, the women's game even proved more that people want to come out.
Last question, do we have any sense when the province will have the final numbers tallied in FIFA for the impact that it had?
Yeah, the Canadian Sport Tourism Alliance is conducting the survey, and so they will be reporting back to us. It typically takes about 3 months post by the time the hotels get all their data and research in, so we hope to see it in the next month.
Okay, great. Thanks again.
Thanks, Councillor Reimer. Councillor Ball.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to join in the mayor and Deputy Mayor Reimer in the congratulations for our staff. And I was recently in Stockholm, and I was on the street with my Canada flag and was surrounded by a group of young women who all went, Canada, Canada, FIFA, FIFA. We were just in Vancouver, and of course everyone in Stockholm speaks perfect English, so it was a wonderful experience meeting these people because they had come over from to Vancouver, and the one thing that they said is that Vancouver trusts their people. They trust the people, that Vancouver trusts the people to join together and be able to have a good time and have it work for everyone. And that for me was the truly magic part about the fan zone and your accomplishments with the fan zone, that you were able to actually create a space that everybody felt safe in, and that our young people were inspired all throughout the community. And I'm hoping that that energy that you were able to bring and that replicated the kind of joy that was in Vancouver during the Olympics will be able to sort of transmit throughout the schools, because major cultural events and major sporting events do really raise the spirits of everyone. But it's what you've done for the children and for the young people that I find most affecting, and being able to keep that energy going. We heard from a very important program today, but where are all the other fingers happening, and what are we doing to move things forward with right now?
For sure. We had over 1,800 complimentary tickets that were distributed throughout the community, and so we were able to touch a number of youth at risk and programs. There's a Canada Scores program that uses education but uses the game of soccer as a tool, because many of the kids in the program are refugees, and soccer is that natural thread that connects all of them, and so they use it as part of their teaching tools. And for them to come to the games, they were just more than ecstatic to see the engagement and what a ball can do to make a person feel like they're a part of a community. And so we will definitely continue to utilize that and have further conversations. Activate Canada is a program that we have initiated where we're launching Activate Vancouver, and it's inspiring youth and leading youth. And so we're going to be doing a Train the Trainer program and using physical activity as the fundamental base skills, in which each of the community centers will nominate one youth to come forward to be that leader, and then return to those community centers to execute a project. And they'll work in their hubs of 3 and deliver that over the next year, and we'll hopefully continue to inspire youth, leading youth in the community centers, and using physical activity as kind of that catalyst to get people moving.
We'll look forward to the report. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Councillor Bell. Councillor Carr?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. And certainly I will add my echo of incredible thanks, Ms. Collins, Ms. Beck, City Manager. Unbelievable tournament. And the incredible thrill of being in that crowd and watching the teams, and especially our girls' teams come out, and not only from here, the United States, just get so excited about this sport. It was really a highlight that I'll remember all my life. So I have 2 questions, and one of them is a follow-up on a comment made by Councillor Reimer around hoping FIFA learns. As you know, I had concerns around turf, putting in artificial turf versus grass. I heard some sports commentators actually address that in some of the discussions around ball handling, that kind of thing. So I am wondering if we have got anything in any reports that we are forwarding to FIFA around the athletes' comments on the turf itself versus playing on grass.
We'll collect the comments. We'll be able to distribute that back with the CSA to see how they address it. They've recently announced a men's event happening here in Vancouver in November, and where the men will play on the artificial turf, and so we'll be able to kind of address both from the women's perspective and from the male perspective, because their qualifier for Rio coming up here will be played on artificial turf, so we'll like the comparison.
We're still getting some men saying no to playing in Vancouver.
Yeah, so we will take both views.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that. The second came up, and it was a criticism waged through the media at councillors, city staff, park board commissioners who were attending games and wanting to know about the cost to the taxpayers of that. My understanding in a report that the city manager put forward earlier is that there wasn't an additional cost, but can you explain to me how those our attendance, which I took full advantage of every game I could go to, and some I paid for, but I'm just wondering how how those costs were covered for people like councillors, staff, or park board commissioners who ended up at the games.
FIFA had a tribune in which there were allocated number of seats that they were giving to each of the host communities for their contributions and to support of the event. There was no expenses. It was not an opt-in. There was not an option for the public to buy those seats. It was a very specific area that was at no cost to the taxpayer, and there was an expectation from FIFA and the CSA that there would be representation from the City of Vancouver to be present at it, you know, for other dignitaries and other people coming into town to be able to interact and to showcase what the game means to the community.
I had lots of conversations with people from out of town, so I was happy to oblige on that. Thank you again for that incredible work that you did to make this such a success.
Thank you for your support.
Thanks, Councillor Carr. Councillor DiGenova.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd just like to congratulate and thank you and all city staff and all of our partners who made this possible. I know that it was very special to everyone from the children attending to all of us who came out and showed our team spirit. And at the end of the day, I think Vancouver really was the winner, certainly. I was just hoping you might be able to answer a few questions I had regarding sort of what we're doing moving forward. We have kids sport. We certainly have our partners at the Vancouver Park Board. What are we doing to kind of keep this momentum going with women's soccer, with girls, engaging them? Is there anything that we're doing after FIFA now to make sure that we engage them through our programs and reach out to especially people through our leisure access to those who aren't able to access it through kids sport or other means?
Yes, for sure. Well, we'd love to continue the legacy of the Women's World Cup here locally. We're looking into the options of legacy tournaments moving forward to give the opportunity for everyone to play in a festival-like environment and to experience soccer at that level. Again, working with Motivate Canada and some of the youth leaders, we used the Women's World Cup as a catalyst to teach them soccer-specific skills so they could go back into the community centers and deliver the programs to make sure that kids that won't be able to go to Metro Ford and to some of the other high-performance clubs, that they still have access to soccer and connecting with them at their community level. And often youth are better, it's better received if another youth is instructing them as opposed to a senior leader. And so we're going to have a combination and then engagement of the women's alumni to continue in our community centers to ensure that soccer is front of mind for those girls and that they can achieve their goals.
I'm so happy to hear that. I think that's wonderful. And just as we heard, maybe in 20 years we'll have our own girls now who are competing.
Has one or two that I've already identified as future Charmaine Hoopers right there.
There we go. So thank you very much. I just have one more question. You touched on tourism, Vancouver, and some of the economic benefits. I was wondering if you might be able to point out maybe the top three, or in your opinion, the top three economic benefits to Vancouver through hosting the FIFA Women's World Cup.
For sure. Well, the numbers predict right now over 52 million in direct impact to the city. What we can tell you is that it is on July 5th, 99% of the hotel rooms were booked. It's the highest ever on the books for Tourism Vancouver, and so they're very excited to see the numbers fall out from that. It's also probably the highest rate of rooms that they were able to capture. With the dollar, the way it is with the American market and then coming up, that impact is significant to Vancouver. We're seeing more and more rubber traffic come across the border, but the fact is we had 55,000 Americans walk away on July 5th just thinking that Vancouver was the best place on earth. And we couldn't have asked for a better platform when we have Alex Morgan and Hope Solo tweeting, "Vancouver, I love you, I will be back," right? And it's not even you can't capture even what that value is internationally, but that social media, and for them to give that credit to a city when they've traveled the world playing, Vancouver has a special place now in many Americans' hearts, and so we really hope to capitalize on that tourism coming up to Vancouver.
Wonderful. And just one follow-up to that. I had heard media reports that this was the highest attendance of BC Place.
Yes, yes, it was the highest attendance, and we hit just under 54 or just over 54,000, and it was a women's game, and that we came out to celebrate, and not once but 4 times, and so that was really exciting. And I think we have to give ourselves credit too to some of the other games in which some of the pool play didn't have as featured games. There weren't the likelihood of the US or Canada, but we still had 28,000 people for a Nigerian soccer game in Vancouver, in which some of our other host cities were only around 12,000. So the fact that Vancouver celebrated all countries, all cultures, all people coming to play the game. I think gives a lot to what we can do to support sport in this community.
Thank you so much, and congratulations again.
Thank you again for your support.
All right, Councillor Affleck is next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, congratulations. I don't have much to add on that front on the kudos side. Just a quick question. We didn't receive this report in advance, so in the slide on the finance went very quickly. Wondering when this report will be made public. Is it already up on the site for the public to see?
I'm not sure if it was made public already. Yes, it has been made public.
It has been posted. I always appreciate getting reports in advance of council so we have a chance to digest it. You mentioned, so the detail of that budget was not particularly detailed at all. Will we be getting more detail as a council in any capacity on bids, on contracts and things like that, and how will that work moving forward?
Yeah, we can look into the details and share with you the process that we underwent for the Women's World Cup and working with our partners to deliver the game, so I can report back for sure to council with the details.
And you mentioned the other report coming from Tourism Vancouver, or who was this other report?
Canadian Sport Tourism Alliance was contracted to do the economic impact study across Canada with each of the host cities.
And will that report be presented to us in council, or will it just be made public and we'll see it, or how will that work with us?
We hope that they do share the details of the event in which we can give a memo to council when it's shared. It will be shared publicly.
But not necessarily presented to us in council in any capacity.
If you'd like it to be presented.
No, I'm just curious if there's a protocol that exists, that's fine. And then any other detail would be presented down the road or as part of a financial statements, and I would assume on how the details of the budget will be presented to us separately, or how will that work?
Yep.
Sure. If the city manager wants to address that.
Madam City Manager.
We've obviously had a lot of questions from the media on this, and I just think that it would be good to be clear on how the reporting will happen moving forward. So Sport BC is in charge of the financial side. We provided the contribution to Sport BC. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, Councillor Deal.
Yes, thanks. There's not much to add to the thank you and congratulations. I wanted to single out Dr. Ballum for your work on this and your soccer powers, your dedication and bringing this forward and making sure that we had all the pieces in place, as well as Councillor Reimer and the Mayor for their soccer skills and dedication as well. And to the great team, Marg, you've done an amazing job with live sites a couple of times now, and you may have a new job description going forward. You may be the live site queen from here on out. And Michelle, obviously. Pete, congratulations. That's great with kids sport. Just a quick question following up on Councillor DiGenova's questions around tourism. And it may have been answered already. I apologize if I missed it. In the survey that you did we do any other surveys about whether people attended other cultural events or restaurants? The hotel data is always quite solid through Tourism Vancouver. Do we know if we captured any of that other cultural tourism spin-off that we often get?
Yes, most definitely. It was a very thorough report. We just gave the very high levels that we can share you the details of that.
I'd be very interested in that tourism side of things. So again, congratulations. And I used to play rugby. Can't wait for the sevens.
Let's do it.
You're here. Okay, that's all the questions. Again, a big thanks, and pass that along to all the city staff, all the partners, staff and volunteers. We had an extraordinary effort, and everyone deserves big thanks and kudos for the great job done. So
right, thank you so much. As a contribution, we'd like to give each councillor and your mayor a mini photo book just to show you how the community celebrated, and photos and images from the fan zone and the activations that we did outside of the fan zone to engage our community and make sure that girls are inspired from this. So we just wanted to give you a thank you before we leave here.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so that concludes our report reference. Reporting back on the Women's World Cup from the summer, and the job very well done by everyone involved. We'll just take a minute here before we move on to the next item. Okay. So thanks again for that great report. And we are moving along now to our next item on the agenda, which is unfinished business from July the 13th. We concluded a public hearing regarding the rezoning for 1754 to 1772 Pendrell Street in the West End and referred discussion and decision to the regular council meeting on July the 21st of 2015. And at that meeting, council agreed to refer the discussion and decision to this meeting today to allow staff some more time to complete the tenant relocation program. So we have an update on that front. Since Councillors Deal and Stevenson were absent from the public hearing, they won't be participating in the discussion or vote on this matter. We'll start with an update from Mr. Drobot on the staff side, and then we'll go into discussion and decision. Mr. Drobot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Dwayne Drobot, Housing Policy and Projects. At the July 21st meeting, council referred this back to staff to deal with the tenant relocation plan and just to do a little bit of revision on it, especially regarding some of the concerns we heard from the tenants regarding moving back into the building. So tenants were concerned that they had a right of first refusal if they did not qualify for the below market rents, that they would be moving into a building where they'd be paying much higher rent than they're paying right now. So in discussions with the applicant, what we have agreed upon between the city and the applicant is to offer tenants who do not qualify for those below market rents, the applicant will offer them an extra 2 months free rent to move into one of those market units. So if they don't qualify, if their income is above and beyond what we were looking for as a 30% of the below market rents, the applicant would give them 2 months rent free to move back into the building. So staff feel that that, combined with the rest of the tenant relocation package, exceeds what we normally do for under our rate of change guidelines. And so what we will do is, as we move forward with the housing agreement and the development permit, we will incorporate that in.
Okay, thank you for that. So any questions from council? Councillor DiGenova.
I just had a question regarding the tenant relocation. I understood that there were some tenants who had already been relocated or had chosen relocation options based on the current package. Would this have been offered to them after they had made their decision if they did fall in that category where they didn't quite meet the requirements for the under market units?
This clause would kick in once the building is near construction and when people have the choice to move back in. So as part of the tenant relocation plan, the applicant has to keep a list of all the tenants and where they've moved to in order to offer them the first right of refusal back into the building. Okay. So it'll be offered to them at that time.
I suppose just for clarification, it was my understanding when hearing from a member of the applicant team that there were certain people where arrangements had already been made for relocation. Mm-hmm. So this option would still be open to those individuals.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Reimer.
I'm sorry, and it may be the break that my brain's a little fuzzy on this. So what happens if the applicant doesn't meet the terms of the relocation? Because of course we wouldn't know that for sure until after the building's built, at which point any regulatory authority we have is gone. Like, what's our recourse, I guess, is the question.
Our standard recourse with all tenant relocation plans is that we put a hold on occupancy of the building. So what we do is we say, here's your plan. We give you the development permit should council approve the rezoning today. And then what happens is that as they're constructing the building, they have to do a tenant relocation report to us. And so what we do is once we receive that report, once we're satisfied, what we do is we release the occupancy hold. So that hold on being able to occupy the building is our last kind of hammer to ensure that the tenants are properly taken care of.
And okay, so we can't, I mean, obviously the building would get built, but we could withhold occupancy, but then what happens? We just have an unoccupied building for a potentially long period of time?
Having an occupancy hold it basically means that you can't get any revenue from that building. So developers are very quick to comply, and we very rarely have to deal with an occupancy hold.
You're right. I get it now. Okay, of course, that would be the pressure to get the relocated tenants in if there were some issues.
That's correct.
So if there were a tenant who felt that the terms of the relocation plan hadn't been met, they would contact the city would do some sort of investigation. If we determined that they had in fact not been met, the occupancy permit would be withheld until the situation was resolved to our satisfaction as a city.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I've got Councillor Jang. You have questions or prepared to move a motion? Okay. Any further questions? We go to the motion. Councillor Jang? Whoops. We're both hitting buttons here.
I'll go back. There we go. Thank you very much. I don't have too much to add. I think we went through a lot of this at the public hearing already. And, oh, she's telling me to lift my mic. There we go. I'm quite satisfied that the tenant relocation package is adequate and that it'll be fulfilled. So I'm just happy to move the recommendations. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Jang. Councillor Carr?
Yes. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I just refreshed myself, obviously, after the break and looked back over all the notes, the minutes, the minutes I took, the speakers, the plan as to, just what this particular project is in the context of the West End plan. Although it was an application that predates the plan, and so was exempted and was allowed to proceed through the planning period. I just want to remind Council that that the original application, which was rejected, actually all of the urban design panel rejected it, had a density, although it was zoned at 2.42 FSR, it was then brought in as an application at 6.33 FSR, and that was unanimously rejected by the UDP in 2010 because of, quote, the amount of density and bulk, which was too much for such a small site. This particular application is a higher density than that density that was rejected by the UDP. So the density is at 6.96 FSR. The height, 60 feet allowed outright, up to 190 feet if livability and environmental quality of the surrounding neighborhood is not unduly harmed, and this is at 190 feet. The livability of this and the environmental quality of the surrounding neighborhood, has it been or would it be unduly harmed? I have to listen to the people who came and who emailed us about their concerns around that. The effects on private and public views, sunshine, privacy, open space. Some even mentioned wind tunneling effect. I am convinced that there will be impacts on livability and the quality of the environment in this area with the density and the height of this building. There's a real concern for me when I hear words like that the negative impacts are not undue. And I asked staff during the process of this public hearing, how do we measure that? What is unduly harmed or not unduly harmed? Is it a number of people? There are people, staff admitted, that will have their views affected, their access to light and sunshine affected. I don't know what that proper number is, but I do know that there are people who will have their quality of life very much unduly harmed. And for me, that number, it's significant. Even if it's a small number, it's significant. I also want to bring to Council's attention that the majority of people who wrote into us are opposed. Over 700 written responses since 2008. Of course, there were 3 different versions, but still, there is a great number of people still opposed to this particular project. The majority, in fact, I will remind you that in the initial examination of this proposal, people were surveyed in the community, and 94% of those surveyed were against a density of 3.28 FSR. 96% against, 19 stories. And these are higher. So for those reasons, for reasons around livability, around height, oh, and finally around the plan itself, although this does come before the plan, as I know, but the plan does say, maintain the character of the 4 residential neighborhoods. This is in a residential neighborhood. It's not on the main street of Davie. Maintain the character of the neighborhoods and maintain a primarily 6-story height limit. So for those reasons, I will be voting against this application.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. And next up is Councillor Affleck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I don't have much to add to Councillor Carr. I think that I always had a problem with this project being extracted from the West End planning process. I felt that was unusual and I felt inappropriate for the people of the West End to have a significant project not be part of the plan. The overwhelming lack of support for this project from the community around it is significant, as Councillor Carr has touched on. You know, you have to weigh the benefits and what are the rewards and what are the negative impacts. And in this case, I don't see enough benefits for the West End or for the City of Vancouver in this project to justify voting in favor of this. So for that reason, I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Affleck. I'm going to skip over Councillor Jang. Councillor DiGenova.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank our staff. I'd like to thank everyone who came out to speak and spent a very long evening here with us and probably was not able to return today because they're at work trying to afford to live in our city. I have to say that each time one of these projects comes to us, I have to consider the merit of the project. Certainly considering the 178 units of rental housing and the 26 units of under market rental here in this project. I was very concerned about the tenant relocation package. However, I understand that staff have worked with our applicant to ensure that, and I know there was one gentleman who came out here and he just literally by a couple $100 per month did not quite make it into the under market units, and he would not be able to afford to live in that development. A number of the people who came out, and I was a little bit fuzzy myself, so I reviewed all of the tapes and the minutes and my notes. Many of them were upset that they didn't feel that they would be able to afford to live in this community any longer. Many of them were concerned about the relocation package. I'm very thankful that the applicant and our staff have come to work together on a package that perhaps will make it a little bit more affordable, and also as a motion that I had put forward looking at different types of family housing for millennials, for seniors. Our chief housing officer brought this to us, a home for everyone. I see that there are 77 units in this building that will be 2 and 3 bedroom that will accommodate families as well. Also, I have to say that a number of people, 57% of those who expressed concern at the public open house were concerned about their own private views. And I have to say that I don't have a lot of empathy for people whose ocean views are blocked if they did not purchase or decide to rent on the waterfront themselves. So I have to say, looking at the merit of this project, the fact that the applicant has come to work with the City of Vancouver and offered a more amenable package to the tenants, I will be supporting this in the interest of making sure that we accommodate family housing in an area that really has a lot of aging housing stock. And although I do have some concerns about how this fits into the West End plan, I do understand that this did predate the plan, so I will be supporting this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor DiGenova. And Councillor Reimers next.
Thank you, Mayor Robertson. I mean, this one was challenging because it is always, you know, no matter how much you try and anticipate in life, it's hard to make a rule that anticipates everything. And the first issue on this one, of course, is the timing. And I think everybody who's gotten up has spoken to that. The first application for this project went in December 2007, which means that the project itself probably started considerably before that, let's say a minimum of 12 months. So we are coming up on a decade now that this project has been rattling through our system here at City Hall in an area of town that has a 0.3% vacancy rate for renters. So it's very difficult for me. It is always a challenge to balance off the needs of the planning process with the legitimate need of property owners to have some fairness in the application of administrative rules. And I would say that waiting a decade to get a proposal before council, 9 years, is a reasonable. I feel that we, at this point, really do need to treat the applicant fairly and give them a fair hearing today and not say that we felt that it shouldn't be before us. I do think that the rental is quite compelling. I mean, as Councillor DiGenova said, there's a substantial amount of family housing here. The vacancy rate for 3 bedrooms in the West End you can't even work out the decimal, it's so small. And there are a lot of families, 8,000 families, primarily living in the West End, in fact, the majority of them, who are living in 1 bedrooms because they can't get access to the 2 and 3 bedrooms. Certainly the Lauren, which was a long, protracted application as well in the West End, has shown us how desperate the need and demand is for newer rental housing in the area. I appreciate that it, because of the funding constraints that the city has and a lack of partners at the federal and provincial level, although that may change soon, at least at one of those levels, it is very challenging to get the public financing in to make it at the core needs level. But every person that's getting out of a 1 bedroom to get or into a higher 1 bedroom because they now have access to it makes room in a lower cost housing unit for someone else. So I absolutely support this. Yeah, and I have to say between the 3 proposals, I did take some exception, Councillor Carr, to your aggregate summary of the 10 years of public feedback on this. You're very well aware that the March 2008 proposal was fully supported by UDP. The 2010 proposal was not. Anyway, you're comparing apples and oranges. I really don't think that's a fair or reasonable way to conduct a public hearing. I would say that I was much encouraged by the speakers who came out at this public hearing who were vehemently opposed to the 2010 proposal. So it did show to me that the applicant has done considerable work to improve the proposal over the last half-decade now. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Reimer, and I'll add my brief words of support for the motion and the recommendations. Appreciate the work done by staff on the tenant relocation as well, and all those who came to speak to this application. There was an interesting variety of feedback. Obviously, the West End is one of our more dense neighborhoods. We've had lots of challenges contemplating change in the West End and new buildings in particular, despite the fact that the surveys that are done, the feedback that we get, particularly through the extensive West End planning process, was that rental housing is desperately needed in the West End, and that social housing even more so. So I think we've got a good proposal before us, and the opportunity to gain some rental housing and more affordable rental is one that we need to seize in this situation. Nothing is perfect, but I think this application has lots of merit to it, and it's an opportunity to keep it creating more supply of more affordable housing in the West End in particular. So appreciate all the good work done, and I will be supporting, and we're going to Councillor Jang to wrap up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Sorry for not standing up. It's the summer break lull, and I forgot that we were in council. I thought I was speaking too low or something when it was waving at me to stand up. I don't have too much more to add, but I do want to thank Councillor Reimer for reminding us that really this application has been processed for 10 years, and so that's why it long predates the most recent plan, and it's not no one's pulling a fast one or anything like that. This has been in process for 10 years, and that's a very long time to get it right, and they did get it right. I think, the heights and the densities and everything is adequate, and really, at the end of the day, it really comes down to where you put your personal values. A lot of people oppose it because they might lose a bit of view or something like that, or some shadowing and things like that. And they said that their, to your words, Councillor Carr, that their quality of life is unduly harmed. And I always, when I do things, I flip it around the other way around, and I say, well, what's the upside to this? And I think of, 178 units of rental housing, 26 at, very affordable rates. So there's a lot of folks whose life will be unduly increased, which is great. And cities change, and I think that sometimes, even in my own neighborhood, when things change and a big house goes up and blocks a bit of my sun or something like that, you're a bit annoyed at the beginning. because, you know, there is a bit of change. But at the end of the day, when that new family moves in and those new kids are out in the neighborhood hanging around and talking to you and meeting the new neighbors, it's sure as hell worth it. So at the end of the day, it's all about people. And that's where I always put my vote, is making sure people get what they need and people have a place to live. And there's been so many reports, even on rental the other day, about how much is being spent on rental and how much is needed. So, you know, that's where you put your choice. I'm voting yes for people, and that's it. So thank you very much to our staff for all their hard work and working on this one for 10 years to get it right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Jang. So we will move to the vote. That's all we have on the queue. So vote on screen. And we are, Councillor Ball, are you? Okay. And Councillor Stevenson and Deal are not voting on this item. And we have votes in, 8 total votes, 5 in favor, 3 in opposition. So the recommendations carry. That is approved. And again, thanks to staff and the applicants for bringing this forward, and to everyone who participated in the public hearing. And that is conclusion of that piece of unfinished business. So we will move on to a motion to rise from Committee of the Whole. Councillor Carr, all those in favor of rising for the balance of the council agenda? Any opposed? That carries. And we need a motion to adopt the report of the Committee of the Whole that has just made all those decisions. A motion moved by Councillor Jang, a seconder. Councillor Carr seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. So we're on to bylaws. We have 11 bylaws on the agenda for consideration by council. However, bylaw number 9 was referred to the Standing Committee tomorrow, as it is subject to the approval of the administrative report, which was referred earlier to hear from speakers tomorrow. So with relation to bylaws 3, 6, 10, and 11, council members not in attendance at the relevant meetings may also vote on the enactments if they confirm that they reviewed the proceedings which they missed, which includes viewing the related video clip. So starting with bylaw 3, that's a public hearing enactment bylaw from a hearing held on June 18th, 2013. Councillor Deal was absent from that public hearing. Councillor DiGenova was not on council at that time. I'll ask Councillor Deal if she had the opportunity to review the proceedings, and will you be voting on the enactment? Okay, not voting on that. And Councillor DiGenova was not on council, but we have to put it on the record every time.
No, I will not be voting on that.
Okay, thank you. Bylaw 6 is the public hearing enactment bylaw from a hearing held on March the 15th, 2011. Councillors Affleck, Ball, Carr, and DiGenova were not on council at that time. That's 2 terms ago, eh? However, at the regular council meeting, July the 21st, 2015, Councillors Affleck and Ball confirmed they had reviewed the proceedings and are now eligible to vote. Councillor Carr, have you reviewed the proceedings related to this bylaw? And if so, will you be voting on the enactment? Okay, you will not. And Councillor DiGenova?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And public bylaw 10 is a public hearing enactment bylaw from a hearing held on May the 26th, 2015. Councillors Affleck and Stevenson were absent from that public hearing. Councillor Affleck, did you have an opportunity to review the proceedings, and will you be voting? Okay, and Councillor Stevenson? No, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Bylaw 11 is a public hearing enactment from a hearing held on July the 8th, 2014. And Councillor DiGenova was not on council at the time. I was absent from the public hearing, and I will not be voting on that. Councillor DiGenova?
I will not be voting on that, and I will have to declare a conflict of interest on that. Thank you.
Okay. And she needed to declare a conflict of interest. She don't need to declare that if you're not voting. So thank you for that. So with that, we need someone to move adoption of bylaws 1 to 8 and 10 and 11. Mover, Councillor Jang will move, and a seconder for that. someone who's eligible. Councillor Meggs will second. All those in favor of the bylaws, those that you can vote or are voting on, and any opposed to the bylaws? None opposed. Okay, we're unanimously in favor, and the list of the approved bylaws can be viewed on the city's website. So we're on to administrative motions, and there are 3 administrative motions on the agenda for consideration. To be moved by Councillor Reimer. Those need a seconder. Councillor Deal will second. And any discussion from council on the administrative bylaws? Councillor DiGenova?
Mr. Mayor, I will have to declare conflict of interest on administrative motion number 1 and 2.
Okay, could you state the nature of your conflict?
For administrative motion number 1, I have an immediate family member who is currently working on the development. And for number 2, I recently sold my personal residence, which was very close to this development.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I will, no further discussion, call the question on the administrative motions. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries unanimously on the 3 administrative motions. Okay, we have 3 motions on notice. We have, first of all, the request for a leave of absence for Councillor Deal for civic business from the Standing Committee on City Finance and Services meeting October the 21st, and from all the meetings to be held November 17th and 18th. Someone please move that motion. Councillor Ball, seconded by Councillor Jang. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries unanimously. On the second motion on notice, we have a request for leave of absence for Councillor Stevenson for civic business from the Standing Committee on Planning, Transportation, and Environment meeting September the 30th, and from the Standing Committee on City Finance and Services meeting on October the 21st. Would someone like to move that motion? Councillor Jang and a seconder. Councillor Carr, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries as well unanimously. And we're on to the third, humanitarian support for refugees, which I will move and Councillor Meggs will second. And again, Council has received a request to speak to this motion. So should Council wish to hear from the speakers, the motion can be referred to the tomorrow's Standing Committee on City Finance and Services. That starts at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. And I will we need a mover of referral to tomorrow. Councillor Carr will move, seconded by Councillor Deal, and I will introduce the motion at that point, just to keep some continuity there when speakers are here, assuming this passes. All those in favor of referral to tomorrow? Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Thank you. That's up tomorrow morning with speakers. And we are now on to notice of motion, new business, inquiries, and other matters. And we've got Councillor Ball first on the queue.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over the last couple of weeks, it's been widely noted in the press that there has been a use of city property for a political announcement. And because I've been approached by a number of citizens with great concern over the fact that we have used our property for a political announcement. And we have had a sort of I'm not sure whether there's actually a bylaw anywhere about this, but it has been time honored that we do not use our city property for any kind of political announcements. People can make announcements outside our buildings, but certainly not within City Hall, and certainly not in our community centers. A number of people have spoken to me about feeling that this is the beginning of what will be a very unfortunate issue for them, which is that they will feel intimidated in community centers if candidates are able to come in and make announcements at any time. And I do appreciate that it was announced that any political party would be able to come in and make an announcement in this space, but does this apply to our next civic election? Are we going to be faced with announcements in all of our buildings? These are the questions that have come to me over and over again from our citizens. Now, I don't feel that during an election time, which we're in right now, that it is the time to be able to bring forward a motion. But I think if we are going to change a tradition that has been this long, we really owe it to the public to offer them an opportunity to comment and to be able to let us know how they feel about the neutrality of our public spaces. So I think that this is an important issue. It's an important issue to our communities, and the fact that every time I go to Safeway or stand in line anywhere, someone brings this up to me, I know that we have touched a nerve in our community. So I think it's an important thing, and I would ask that, are we going to stop this at this particular space at this particular time, or is this something that's going to carry on through all other elections? So I would look forward to hearing about that and seeing if there are any answers on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mic's off. Thank you very much, Councillor Ball. And next up is Councillor Reimer.
Thank you, Mayor Robertson. Well, I could regale you with an exhaustive list of exciting events that have happened since our last council meeting, but I think I will just stick to one, which I'm particularly excited about. This past weekend in Portland, we had staff attend the 2015 International Association for Public Participation Awards, or IAP2. The City of Vancouver, I am proud to say, won the Honorable Mention in Organization of the Year category for the work that we're doing on public engagement, and particularly for the Engaged City Task Force. I know you're dying to know who we lost out to. It was the City of Victoria, despite it being a Cross Canada award. But they did say congratulations on behalf of the judging panel for the 2015 International Association for Public Participation, or IAP2, Core Values Honorable Mention Award for your entry in the organization category entitled Engaged City. There was substantial competition this year, and you should indeed be proud of your accomplishment. I was not able to obtain the award to show it off today, but happy to send you all a picture so that you can congratulate staff who've worked very hard on increasing public engagement and the quality of public engagement over the last number of years. Also, I have a motion on notice related to social procurement. There's an organization that has been established called Buy Social Canada, which has a certification process that would allow us to better track and provide metrics to our social procurement in the city. So I have a motion requesting that we consider supporting their certification process, but it's on notice for next meeting, so I will speak to it at that time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Reimer. Next is Councillor Carr.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to give notice of a motion on a motion I'd like to have heard at the next meeting, conserving water through measures. Based on, of course, the drought we had this summer. So ways in which the city could better conserve water through measures such as a toilet exchange program and other measures.
She's put that on notice, so
great.
We will consider that at the next meeting of council in 2 weeks' time.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd also like to take a few moments to report on my attendance at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities recent board meeting. As you all know, I'm the representative of this council through your designation, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Louis, on 3 committees at the FCM. And so just to report quickly on those 3 committee meetings, which I did attend. The Environmental Issues and Sustainable Development Committee, there were motions that the City of Vancouver itself had forwarded, and I want to just reassure you that environmental assessment for coal transport as one, marine vessel sewage discharge, and requesting the federal government to actively enforce the regulations, which we had brought up at this council meeting. Sunken or submerged diluted bitumen. All 3 of those motions were forwarded to the consent agenda and passed by the board, so they will be at the next Federation of Canadian Municipalities annual general meeting. My second committee is increasing women's participation in municipal government. Today, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is in fact launching a program called Diverse Voices for Change, and it is a program aimed at achieving the minimum 30% of women participating in electoral office. So you can probably read about that in the media. My third program is community safety and crime prevention. Something I think of great concern to us in the city from a variety of points of view. There's a continued push by FCM to get the money reinstated for the JEP programs and the HUSAR program. JEP doesn't affect us as much as more rural communities, but HUSAR, we are having to pick up the slack for the fact that the federal Conservatives cut the program funding there. Secondly, that the FCM is working on a new federal emergency preparedness program expanding national disaster mitigation. And I was in conversation in that committee around the kinds of disasters that we want to make sure are expanded into the mandate. Oh. Sorry. Then I will not be competing any more on this. Fine. All right. Sorry about that. What about the public campaign where we're encouraging candidates? Okay. The public campaign that the FCM has launched is to actually get all of the candidates from all of the federal parties in this national campaign to commit to the actual objectives of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities on infrastructure, on the really big issues facing us and needing federal funding. Civic infrastructure and asset management, on affordable housing, on transit, to name the big three, and also, of course, on climate action. So there is a website that they've devised, and what they are encouraging all members of every council across Canada to do is to actually get onto that website. I'm happy to provide that link to you, and I can email it all to you, to actually encourage local candidates, so say here in Vancouver, for you as council members to actually email every local candidate in all the Vancouver ridings and ask them to sign on to the pledge to support the FCM's objectives around these important issues in the federal election. So I'll do that after this meeting and look forward to your response. It was great at the time of the meeting. We actually all did it in a session there and managed to really boost the profile on the media, in terms of social media, in terms of this particular action by the FCM. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Carr. And Councillor DiGenova is next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I have notice on motion, and I've submitted that to the clerk, and I won't read the whole thing out, but it's titled Current Status of the Southeast Vancouver Senior Centre, and a quick synopsis of that is just for council to receive. What it asked for in the motion is for council to receive an update through a memo on that. And it also addresses a question that I have heard from many seniors, and I'm not sure if my colleagues have as well. Councillor Ball and I did on September 11th attend the Southeast Vancouver Seniors Arts and Cultural Society AGM, and this is the group of seniors that have worked tirelessly to advocate for the centre. There are concerns that with the federal election that is coming up very soon, just next month, I'm just asking that staff also provide an opinion to us on whether or not any of that funding from the Build Canada Fund, the $2.5 million committed to the centre, would be in any jeopardy due to the federal election. So that's the motion. I also have a number of inquiries, Mr. Mayor. My first inquiry, it's unfortunate that our Deputy Mayor is not here, because my first inquiry actually is regarding FIFA. and the Women's World Cup here in Vancouver, and the first event. And it was a fantastic event. Loved the report. Congratulations to staff. However, I was curious as to why the deputy mayor had to fly back and forth from FCM twice to open the event up here in Vancouver, considering the council representative or acting deputy mayor, I'm not quite sure what we call ourselves during that month, Councillor Affleck was here and able to do that. So it's just a concern to me because that's double the flights that any other councillor took. And, you know, it seems to me that it might defeat the city's greenest city action goals here, you know, using twice as much jet fuel, going back and forth, the cost to the city. So just had some questions regarding that, and also some questions regarding the protocol. If someone is out of town, how the council representative is allocated or called on for these events. My understanding, the Councillor Affleck did not get any notice of this event and wasn't asked and was only a few blocks away. So just interested about that, and especially the unnecessary carbon emissions generated from this flight. Also, I had some questions regarding the latest commercial drive. They called it a street party. I'm calling it a protest. Just wondering, I understand that the media reported over $90,000 in cost to the city and costs surrounding policing. I was just hoping that maybe some way staff would be able to provide an update to council on that. Also, I'm just wondering, this is the second event, unsanctioned event, that this group has planned over the course of a year. I'm just wondering also if we're going to be making any, you know, provisions for this in our upcoming budget, considering that is quite a large amount of money, and it seems like they had a good time and they're going to do it again. That's what I heard from reports in the media, so just interested as to how we're treating that and how we're basically treating that unsanctioned event, considering the number of groups that do come to our city that go through the proper event permitting process. Thank you.
Madam City Manager. Microphone.
Yeah, microphone on, Mr. Mayor.
There it is.
Thanks very much, Councillor DiGenova. So on the first issue, the protocol with FIFA is fairly clear. Their first choice is to have the mayor celebrate in the opening of an international games like FIFA, and when the mayor was unable to be available, we made the deputy mayor available. So as you probably remember from, you know, our experience at the Olympic Games, protocol is very important to these, you know, big ISOs. They have a lot of international dignitaries to come to this, and if we're going to have the opportunity to host events, they're very interested in, you know, the pecking order is very, very important to them. And so if the mayor couldn't be there, the next choice was the deputy mayor. We were able to make Councillor Reimer as the deputy mayor available. So that was a choice that we made in order to meet their protocol requirements. It's just part of, you know, the expectations of an international sporting event of that level.
I just have one more quick question, and that is, now that we're back in council for fall, we've just dealt with some unfinished business regarding a proposed development. Just wondering regarding the motion that I brought to council earlier before summer break regarding a home for everyone, the possibility of affordable ownership and micro suites and other forms of housing for families or millennials or seniors. Just wondering if that's something we'll be planning on moving forward with this fall before Christmas break. And maybe that's a question best directed to planning and development, but.
Well, at the end of the day, the work is ongoing, as you know, Councillor. The development of affordable ownership is a complex policy issue. We're doing it, and it will move forward as soon as it's, you know, gone through the machinery of approvals by the different parts of the city, but it's underway for sure.
Thank you very much.
I'll just answer your other question, though, around the commercial street activation. You know, this fits into activities that occur in the city. We've had a few examples this year, and it happens every year. It is part of our day-to-day business that there are organizations that, you know, wish to, usually in protest, you know, specifically not apply for a permit. And whether it's Canada Day marijuana activists, or whether it's this particular example or other gatherings that happen, we do everything possible, you know, to document that we've directly and explicitly requested them and told them it's necessary for them to get a permit. that there are impacts to their organization, to the city, and et cetera. However, when they don't cooperate with us, there's nothing more that we can do to ensure the safety of our communities than to deploy, whether it's police, in this case police, park rangers, engineering staff, you know, the different disciplines across the city that are deemed in our planning for these events appropriate to deploy to make sure things are safe and don't get out of hand, are deployed. And, you know, we're very clear this is not a sanctioned event, it's not a legal event, and we do everything possible in the course of, you know, taking care of it to make sure they know that if this happens again, they must come and get a permit. We probably don't have the authority to pre-arrest people who are intending to have a non-permitted event in our city at this point, something council might want to consider taking up to senior levels of government if you wish. But at this point in time, we deploy really the minimum resources needed to make our community, our public, our business community feel safe, feel protected. And, you know, as we discussed around, because I know you were worried about the VPD and their budget, and I just want to reassure council, the VPD does very well. They have a great budget. They always come in with a surplus. At this point, we see no frailties of their ability to actually expense this kind of thing. They have a lot of ad hoc demands placed on them over the course of any 1 year, and so far, I think these ones aren't putting them under financially.
Okay, thank you. I'm also concerned just about the city budget whole. So if I could get the numbers on what that cost was for city staff to come out, that would also be much appreciated. Thank you.
Sure, we can provide those costs.
Okay, we're on to Councillor Deal. Next up.
Yes, thanks very much. Despite Councillor Carr's earlier intervention, Raymond Louis, Councillor Louis, acting mayor, is in fact the president of FCM this year. We're extremely proud of him, and normally it would fall to him to do a review of the meeting, and I won't do a thorough review of the meeting. You've already heard about some of the committees in more detail than perhaps would normally be done. But what I did want to do was to give the details around that Hometown Proud campaign. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities, as you know, is a membership organization of local communities throughout the entire country and represents over 90% of the population of Canada. It's a nonpartisan organization, and what it does during campaigns is it presents those issues which are of great importance to municipalities, as has been articulated, housing and infrastructure in particular, and transportation. Hometownproud.fcm.ca is the website. Hometownproud.fcm.ca is the website. It has a whole lot of information which you can ask of all of your candidates of every political party so that they can answer in a way that gives you a real comparator side by side. There's an election toolkit here. There's candidate commitment sections where candidates commit to signing on to the pledges that FCM is asking for. There's information about every candidate in every riding, and there's a policy tracker for policy wonks like myself. This is a great section of the website where you can go through and see what actual policy commitments have been made on each of the issues that are of great importance to municipalities by each of the political parties. And that is being updated on a daily basis as parties continue to roll out their platforms. So if you're interested in finding out what each of the political parties says about issues of great importance to municipalities, if you're interested in learning about what your candidates, who your candidates are in any given riding, and if you're interested in an election toolkit where you can help to ask your candidates these questions of great importance, hometownproud.fcm.ca is the site for you to visit. And as Councillor Carr mentioned, we did a little tweet up there at FCM and managed to trend nationally. We were very excited about that because we're kind of nerdy. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Deal. And Councillor Meggs is next before I will close.
Wanted to respond briefly to Councillor DiGenova's questions because they seem to be posed in the form of, are we worried or planning to do something like put a chunk of money aside to pay for the antics of people who don't seek permits? And I'm not sure if that's what she was saying or if she's proposing preemptive arrest, but she should help us, I think, by, oh dear, am I being intimidating again? I'm sorry.
Councillor DiGenova, do you have a point of order?
Words are being put into my mouth that I certainly did not say. Thank you very much.
It's very, very helpful clarification because I was saying, I think, if Councillor DiGenova believes that these would be good initiatives, putting a chunk of money into the budget to pay for the antics of people on Commercial Drive or pre-arresting them, then she should propose those initiatives. But I personally am not prepared at the moment, unless I hear a good argument, to consider raising taxes to pay for presumed antics by people who are not seeking permits. I don't think that's the way we should go. I think that we're managing this pretty well the way it is, and I think that the people on the drive who are so frustrated by this may need to work with us, some of us councillors, and maybe work in their own neighborhood to sit down with people who they know are their neighbors and say, look, you know, parties are great, but these aren't working for us, and we should find a different approach that's consistent with city policy, and lets those folks express their views.
Thank you, Councillor Meggs. Looks like it's me last go here on new business and other matters. I just had a couple things. One, wanted to thank our staff for their work on the refugee forum that we hosted last week, which was, given how urgently that situation arose, we saw events happen in city halls across the country. The big city mayors have been discussing this and comparing notes, looking at best practices that we can roll out to support refugees in our cities across Canada, and there has been a broad call for an increase in refugees, government-assisted refugees across Canada. With the federal election, we're seeing a lot more attention on it, obviously, than ever before. And I want to appreciate the work done here by our city staff to make sure on very short notice we were able to organize a forum here to talk about what people can do and what the general state of affairs is for refugees in Vancouver and across Canada and internationally. And it was extremely well attended. We had I think over 400 people here at City Hall. It definitely tested the capacity of this aging building. Every room that we had for that public forum was jammed with people, and it was a challenge for staff to manage that in the moment. But I think we managed to get everyone in who was here to be part of that meeting, and live streaming was set up very quickly and to enable lots of people to watch online. So thanks for that work. On the one more piece on the federal election front, there is a Cities Can website as well. Big city mayors have been part of this, working with the FCM. So citiescan.ca is a website with a lot of the concerns raised across the country by local governments for this federal election and the parties that are competing for seats. That's something people can check out. And the word is, I think, just about to go out. Council, I don't think, has received this formal invitation yet, but on October the 1st, all-party forum that the city and SFU are partnering on. SFU is the ultimate host of this. The city's going to support that to have all of the parties represented to talk about what their priorities will be for Vancouver. Certainly we can make our priorities known. Citizens will be encouraged to come out and be part of that dialogue. And again, that's going to be October 1st. The details will be out imminently, I think, at some point today to everyone. And finally, I just want to make mention of the big storm that hit us this summer, which came as a huge surprise, particularly the wind and the combination of heavy rains and then wind, the largest power outage in history for BC Hydro, which impacted the entire region. But I want to really thank and appreciate the work of our staff here at the city on the front lines of this. Our city manager, deputy city manager were right on it on the front lines. Our EOC was activated. We had people on the street dealing with all manner of challenges, from the trees down to the drains blocked. Many residents impacted, significant costs from that. But it really demonstrated the great work that's being done on our response to an emergency, and in this case, a natural disaster we rarely see here in the city, particularly in the summer. And so a big thank you to all the staff that were involved. Obviously, we talked about and appreciated BC Hydro staff who got the power back on despite the enormous outage that happened. But from our frontline staff on the streets, our management team who oversaw all this activity, to the folks in 311 who were dealing with the challenges on the phone and online. I think it was lots of learnings from it, no doubt, but it was a robust response to a really tough challenge in the city, and a crisis that we're going to face more of. I think more frequently we're going to see those kind of extreme weather events, and we need to continue adapting and preparing for those, not only here at City Hall and with all of our staff at the city, but as citizens. Everyone's got to be ready for those kind of events to impact us. But it was a real test, and I think on many accounts our city team did a great job of managing the aftermath of that storm. So big thanks again. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn this council meeting. Councillor Stevenson, Councillor DiGenova seconds, and all those in favor of adjournment. Any opposed? And that carries. So we, council will shift to in camera, and we'll be back here tomorrow for our committee meeting tomorrow morning at 9:30. Thanks, everyone.